Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch. This is Policy Talks that's brought to you almost monthly, with the exception of a couple of months this summer, by the Williamson Inc., our local Chamber of Commerce here in Williamson County. We enjoy being welcome to the Columbia State campus. This beautiful campus is a great venue for what we do here, and we've got a bright-eyed audience here in the community room, and hope that some more of you can join us anytime. We also have our viewers on Channel 3 Comcast or YouTube Channel 3. And I'm going to get Creed Henderson here in just a minute to explain YouTube TV to me and anybody else that's listening. And then Tom Lawrence, thanks to Tom, we have WAKM listeners here with us this morning too. Creed Henderson, tell us all about YouTube TV and how someone can watch this on TV.
Okay, sure thing. This is a bit of a surprise. I didn't know you were doing this early. You can go to wc-tv.net. That's our webpage. You can find everything on there, or on our YouTube channel on YouTube, and catch it live on there, or the archive as well. So, and on cable, it's Comcast Channel 3, Charter 192, United 207, and AT&T 99.
So YouTube, the YouTube app, and then what do you?
WCTV, Williamson County Television. You can find us that way.
There you go. So if you want to watch it live and you're listening on the radio or something like that, I've been meaning to ask him that for a while now, and so I made a note of it this morning. Thank you, Creed. We got some special guests this morning. Doug Fruland is the president and CEO of the Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority. I heard him speak a few months back to the county commission, and I thought, that is a perfect presentation for a Policy Talks, where we get to have a little more interaction and audience Q&A. So I'm looking forward to having Doug with us. Josh Powell is his assistant vice president for government relations and airline relations. Pretty wide spectrum job, it sounds like, and we're going to get him to tell us a little bit more about how he manages all those challenges.
Carefully.
Yes. That's great. Let me give you a little intro to Doug. Doug has been with the Airport Authority since 2012, came to us from Huntsville, spent about 4 years or 5 there with the airport in Huntsville. Prior to that, 27 years in the Air Force, I believe, ending as colonel in the chief of staff, I think, at the Airport Academy. Is that right? And if I can quote Sam Whitson, I can say with no exaggeration that in my 26 years of military service, Doug is one of the finest leaders I've ever been associated with. Watched him navigate complex issues with skill and respect. So this gentleman we have today is, he's a very talented guy, as you can tell. And as you hear his presentation, it's crazy all that he's got going on out there. Josh, you're a product of the MTSU Aerospace Academy. I don't know, what's it called? Program. I've heard good things about it, and you've been with the Airport Authority for, 16 years, I think.
Yes, sir.
Did a little research or espionage on you, and looking forward to hearing more about all the things you've got going on. Doug has a slide presentation. Again, I've seen this before, a version of it, and it's fascinating, so I'm going to stay out of the way for the first several minutes and let Doug go through the presentation, and then we'll get into some Q&A here in just a little bit. Doug, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Dave, and thank you all for this opportunity. Dave didn't tell us we're going to be on TV and the internet and all that, so that's a good thing anyway. We're looking forward to answering any questions that you have for Josh and I. We'll run through these slides and get done in fairly rapid fashion, and hopefully if you have any questions, we can come back to any slide in particular to talk about it.
Doug, I will remind you, we have some radio listeners, so
Oh, okay. Radio too. That's fine with us as well. So every month we do aerial photography of the airport to see what's changed and how do we keep track. So this is one of our latest shots, and you're seeing on this screen the old Donaldson Pike being lowered 50 or 60 feet, the new Donaldson Pike being, continued to work on by TDOT to get to I-40. When the old Donaldson Pike is out of the way, you can see that's going to leave us a lot more land to do other things that we'll talk about. So we've been an airport authority since 1970, so very successful for 54 years. About 50% of the airports in the United States are airport authorities. The others are divided up into a city government or a state government or county government. An airport authority basically means you're on your own, where you're not getting any more money from the city, and you got to operate like a business. So we have revenue that we have to generate to pay all of our expenses, and we pretty much move on from there. The airport authority in Nashville is responsible for two airports: John C. Toone, 300 acres, busiest general aviation airport in the state of Tennessee, and Nashville International Airport, 4,600 acres, busiest commercial airport in the state of Tennessee. What most people don't realize is on Nashville International Airport, we're running 3 airports at a given day. So most people want to talk to us about passenger traffic. That's that top right corner you see. Below that is a general aviation segment. And then over on the western side is a cargo maintenance, repair, overhaul type facility. The passenger side of the house, we have a little over 600 commercial jets coming and going every day. General aviation, we have about 150 corporate jets coming in and out every day. And on the cargo MRO side, probably around 20 to 30 jets coming in and out there. Amazon Prime, FedEx, and the associated aircraft that need some maintenance. So this is why the city created an airport authority in 1970. They were generating $2 million a year. They had expenses of 1.6, but that's $600K of leftover money. But they owed $2.9 million on their annual debt service. So they're like, well, let's give this debt to somebody else, and the airport authority was created. Today, the goals that my Board of Commissioners established for us for this coming year is we're going to generate a little over $340 million running the airport. It cost us almost $200 million to operate it, and so that looks like, there's 140 extra million. But when you borrow $1 billion, our mortgage this year on the airport is $105 million. And then these grant assurances that are on this slide, if you take $1 from the federal government, you have to sign a grant. And when you sign that grant, then there's 39 different assurances that you have to comply with. These are some of the ones that are most important. You have to charge fair market value for your services, and you can't divert revenue off the airport. So every dollar we earn on the airport has to be returned to some improvement at the airport. So it really focuses you on what you need to do. And then this bottom left of that chart basically is economic impact. That's been very helpful to Representative Whitson and transportation, the state of Tennessee, because they realized how important the 78 airports are in Tennessee, how much economic impact. In the last study, it was a little over $20 billion of economic activity from those 78 airports. BNA generates 50% of that $20 billion. It's now, our annual impact to the economy is about $12 billion a year, and all of the people that work to help us do our job, Josh and my job, there's about 76,000 jobs related to the airport business out there. And this is our challenge. Williamson County leads the way in growth, and so does everything else in Middle Tennessee. So we've been doubling the size of the passenger traffic every 10 years. And so if you look back in 2014, we had 29,000 people go through the airport a day. And this year, or this current year right now that we just finished, we averaged a little over 65,000 people go every day. If you think about it in terms of, let's say, the Tennessee Titans, the current Nissan Stadium holds 67,000. They hold 12 or 13 football games there a year. We have a Titans game every day at the airport, so 365 days a year. Some days you'll see in the media where we have some trouble with traffic backing up and that. When you do 65,000 people a day, we just are at 24 million. But some days we're at 90,000 people going through on spring break, fall break, holidays. And so if you multiply that by year, some days we're acting like we're at 33 million passengers already. So that's where the growth and the construction that we're doing is trying to keep up so that when we get to that every day doing 100,000 people through the airport, we're able to keep up. So we have lots of goals that our Board of Commissioners look for the long-range planning side of the house, and then that basically generates all the capital programs that need to support those goals. So this is what we do on a day-to-day basis, and I won't go through every box here, but just know that this is the current terminal setup, and you can see I'll talk in detail, a little bit more detail on New Horizons. So we just finished BNA Vision, a 7-year program, cost us about $1.6 billion. We got into New Horizon, and it's gotten so big we're having to split it into 2 parts, Horizon 1 and Horizon 2. Horizon 1's another $1.6 billion. Horizon 2, we don't know what that's going to cost yet. And then eventually we're going to get to Terminal 2, and that's a land challenge for us. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So New Horizon, we got to improve the roads. I've already gotten a few questions on roads. So when the Donaldson Pike is moved, that's the divergent diamond you see. TDOT is paying for everything that's in the light blue, if you can see that. What that does when Donaldson moves 100 yards or so away from where it exists today, that allows us to build a bigger loop. The current loop at the airport is a 1-mile oval, 2 lanes wide. The new loop will be 2-mile oval, 6 lanes wide, and that's just to get the volume of traffic in and out of the airport. It's going to take us a few years to move stuff around and do all that, and the 360 plus is because we're not sure just yet. We're building a computer model that allows us to set it for 25 million. What's it going to look like at 28 million? What about 32 million and stuff? And so we're trying to make all the right decisions for if we get as high as 40 million passengers, how are the roads going to be able to handle that? And then this is the rest of BNA Vision. This is Josh's fault, because as he continues to recruit new airlines to us, they have new requirements. So when we first started at the airport, we were around 30 gates. We built ourselves up to 40 gates. When we opened up the new international arrival area, we're now at 54 gates. Horizon will get us to go to 70 gates. So where we're doing 600 jets a day, commercial jets, today, when we get to the 70 gate in 2028, we'll be doing a little over 1,000 jets a day coming in and out of here. And that requires all these different projects to go on. So the first thing of that, and I'll talk about them, but on the top left, Concourse D, it's being extended. It's adding 5 gates. It has a record node at the end. We have beautiful terrazzo that's going to be, around one of our restaurants there. 287 million opens up July 2nd of 2025. These are some of the new renderings of inside. That Martini Coffee and Drinks Bar will be at the record node. We had a lot of success getting the Titans in there and the Predators in there. Now the Nashville Soccer Club will have their own restaurant, and then a cantina is coming into the food court. And then the day that opens, July 2nd, 2025, the next day we're closing Concourse A, moving everybody out of that and demo it. And it has 6 gates today. When we build it back, it'll have 16 gates. That's what gives us the jump to 70 gates there. It'll be 400,000 square feet of new space. Today we already manage 5 million square feet of space inside the airport. But the top right where you see the entry view on that slide, that's going to be the new look as you come off the interstate. You're going to see a 3-story glass building. That's the food court / lounges that'll go in that section of the airport. And then on the bottom left is where we're going to start introducing where the lounges, when you're inside the airport, you'll actually have the chance to go outside and breathe real air, on the verandas and enjoy a beverage of your choice. So this one will take 3 years to build. Close A on July 3rd of 2025. This one opens up July 3rd of 2028, $855 million. That will be awarded here, we hope, in the next board meeting in September. And then this is, again, Josh's problem here. So as Southwest continues to grow, today Southwest has about 250 pilots. We're now going to be a crew base for them. That means they'll go from 250 pilots to 750 pilots. And we're at 750 flight attendants today, going to 3,000 flight attendants. So they need more space. And as they bring in jets, Southwest has a very high turn rate. And so they may have extra jets parked here overnight just in case somebody's breaks, they can substitute a new jet. The other thing you might remember from a couple years ago, we might have had a little bit of a snow issue and how we move aircraft around. So this new ramp is being built for basically speed de-icing. So aircraft will pull into a lane, they'll have trucks on each side, spray and go, and then the next jet pulls up, gets squirted, and then out to go. That's no easy challenge filling that hole in. It's 1.1 million cubic yards of rock and dirt. It's only going to take 110,000 dump trucks to fill it in. So if you have a dump truck you'll rent to the airport, let me know. And then Josh, I'll turn over to you about British Airways. We'll talk briefly about our international service, and we'll get to Dave's questions.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So, one of my jobs is I lead the Air Service Development Department for the Airport Authority, which most days is pretty fun. I get to talk to a lot of different airlines about a lot of exciting opportunities to bring people to and from the region. So if you take a look at we'll focus on international here, but if you take a look at what international passengers have done over the past decade, it's very similar to the passenger chart you saw before, but so in the fiscal year that we just finished on June 30th, almost 1.6 million people either started or ended their journey in an international destination out of BNA. So you can see the dramatic growth of that, almost 2.5 times what it was back in 2014. We currently have the daily nonstop on British Airways to London, which has been a huge success. They upsized that aircraft on April 1st of this year. From a 214-seat aircraft previously on a 787-8, and now they're flying a 777-200, which is 272 seats. I can safely say we absorbed that extra capacity really well. In May and June, the load factor, so how full that plane was during May and June, was over 97%, both directions. So that's pretty remarkable. We do also have nonstop service to the 5 largest cities in Canada: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. And we're adding the 7th largest this fall in nonstop service to Winnipeg. So excited to have that. And then we do have one destination to Mexico, which is Cancun. So if as we talk a little bit more about Europe, we're actively recruiting additional airlines to Europe and trying to find somebody else to help, give us additional supply, because the demand is definitely there. So, we have several target destinations that we're looking at. We're talking to international carriers at least once a week, if not multiple times a week. But you can see here, the yellow is the demand, the passengers per day each way. And then the blue there is our nonstop seats. That's on British Airways. And you can see there's a very large gap, so there's a very good opportunity for additional carriers and additional capacity to come in and serve Europe nonstop. So when we take a look at the numbers, the number we discussed earlier, it averages out to 2,176 passengers per day each way are flying international. So this takes a look at how that breaks down by region. But so going over to Asia, we have 214 people per day each way. Down to going south there, Mexico, Caribbean, Latin Americas, there's 740 people per day each way going that to and from. There, Canada's at 505, and Europe, Middle East, and Africa is 717 people per day each way, back and forth, and 603 of that number is just Europe. So you can see there's a lot of demand over that direction. Big announcement yesterday, in case anybody missed it. So Southwest Airlines did announce that 3 new destinations for BNA starting in March of 2025. So we're going to have a daily flight to Indianapolis, which is great. That's something that we've been missing on the domestic map. But then we'll also have Saturday service to Los Cabos, Mexico, and Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. So really excited about that. Just in time for spring break and summer travel. A couple of great beach destinations. And I hear there's some good races up in Indy.
So let me back up on one that we try to talk about, and maybe Dave has a question on this. But when you look at that 272 going to London on that bar chart, and you know that now 700 or so are going to Europe and other destinations there, that's the selling point for us, because if you're an international carrier and you want to serve that market, you know your jet's going to be about 100% full when you come in there. And so we'll talk in more detail, but that's the selling point for Nashville, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, is how many travelers, and that's per day, 2,176 leaving every day to go to somewhere in the globe, and 700 of that 2,700 are going to Europe. So this is our challenge going forward. Is you can see our passengers on this chart. We've added 31, we've doubled from 14 to 24. What if that happens to us again and we add another 31,000 people per day going through the airport? That'll take us up to 96,000. How can we handle that? Yes, the current terminal will go to between 35 and 40 million. We're at 24 right now, so we have that ability, but what's next? And so the what next is us trying to do our job to say, how do we grow beyond that? And where would we put more gates to get to 90 or get to 100, and if Nashville continues to grow? So on the right side of the slide is Terminal 1. We're studying. We won't have all the fine points figured out till hopefully by the end of this year, but that box in green is about the same size. There's 400 acres at our current terminal. There's 309 acres in the green. The only problem is all those people like living in that green area. And so we would have to figure out a way to move all of that infrastructure somewhere else on the airport. And then that would be a new clean slate. And then you'd have a Terminal 1 and a Terminal 2. And how we would connect those two terminals is another one of the challenges. That would we have our own subway? Would we have our own train or tram or something like that? I like the zip line approach, but nobody, it saves money, it's a little free air out there. So we're working on that as we go forward. And then this is just an illustration as we work with our commissioners. This is one of the draft slides, but when Donaldson moves out of the way and comes straight up here, and this is where you can see TDOT building that new intersection into 40, you can see how much space that generates for us to put additional rental car facilities or more parking garages or other things that we need. So we're working on that. And then I mentioned 2 airports, John C. Toone and BNA. John C. Toone on March 3rd, 2020, with the tornadoes, came across the southern half of the airport, destroyed 91 aircraft. We don't show that on this slide, but we have since built 100 hangars to replace those aircraft and hangars that were destroyed. And now we've moved to the north side of John Toone. And we're building new hangars, a couple renderings there. There were 10 parcels. All 10 of those parcels have been rented out to 6 firms, and they're in the construction mode to build new hangars for corporate jets. Whenever you see a company relocate to Middle Tennessee from somewhere else in the United States, if they have corporate jets associated with them, they want them to come with them. And so that's what we're using John C. Toon for. And then this is the chance. Dave told us you better finish on time, but this gives you a good view of what we're trying to do. You can see the space that's going to be created on the right side as Donaldson moves farther and farther to the right to give us opportunity to build a bigger racetrack for either NASCAR or those arriving late for a flight. So we'd be glad to answer any questions you got, Dave.
I just asked him earlier that new interchange on I-40, I understand, is going to be a diverging diamond interchange, like the new interchange down at Spring Hill. And so I asked the Columbia State folks if they're going to give a class on how to navigate one of these diverging diamond interchanges, because the first time or two you go through it, it's a little wild, but moves traffic apparently very, very efficiently. This is fascinating. I'm going to go to some boring stuff just for a minute, though, because TDOT's spending a lot of money out there. And have y'all got a number on what TDOT's spending on I-40 and Donaldson Pike?
Rough numbers, TDOT is spending about $150 million. It's a state road, so they're responsible for moving that and building that new intersection. So they're spending about $150 million. And as you saw on one of our slides, our part of that, anything that's on our property, we have to pay for. So to build that new loop and the other interchanges we need inside to control the flow is about $360 million from airport.
Okay, and Metro Nashville gives you no funding at all? And so, and the federal government gives you, I presume, quite a bit through FAA, or how does that work?
So they do give us some money, but comes those 39 grant assurances and the rules that go with that. But when you look at the total budget that we manage, probably the federal funds is about less than 3%.
Okay.
So we'll get a few $1 million, all millions help, but in the big picture of what we're doing, it's not a significant amount.
So this question is probably unanswerable, but I'm going to ask it anyway. But if Metro Nashville is not providing any funding and the state of Tennessee is providing $150 million for road improvements, why would the state not want to be represented on the board?
That's a great question. And so, the airport was the authority, the authorization to create an authority, what came in state law in 1969. But as part of that legislation, then the city had to authorize the authorities. So the city of Nashville was far-reaching and thinking, and they created the airport authority. It operates as a business. As I tell both sides of the equation, we have a 54-year track history of going from being in debt to having the strongest financial position we've ever been in is where we at today. So it works as it is, and whatever the courts decide, ultimately we have to follow the law. So the airport authority is going to run like a business, and we're going to follow whatever the state law tells us to do. Those two parties litigated, the state lost. It's now in the appeals process. They just filed their briefs recently. There was going to be a hearing, or the appeals hearing, on October 1st. Yesterday, that was just delayed to November 7th. So on November 7th, the two parties will discuss it again, and then the judges will rule what rules they want us to follow. So we've gotten great support from Metro, but we've also gotten great support from the state of Tennessee. That politics side of the house is Josh and I will just worry about running the airport.
Well, I saw Josh's title. One of his titles is government relations. I thought that would take a very large personality to handle the government relations that y'all got going on now.
He's got that,
In case you haven't been following.
Yeah, you're seeing nice Josh right now, so he can come out.
In
weather's just so nice. So I'm, matching the environment.
Great. Well, in case you haven't been following it, Metro Nashville has appointed the mayor, I guess, has appointed the board since 1970. And in the state of Tennessee, the state legislature decided last year, I guess it was, to let the governor appoint the Metro Airport Board. And so there's a little bit of a conflict going on, and they're caught in the middle. So we'll see how it all turns out. But I would think $150 million worth of road improvements would win that battle, but I don't know. The nonstop destinations. Now, I know why I like nonstop flights. How important is that to the overall traffic at the airport? How much of your traffic is nonstop flights versus connecting flights, or can you track that?
Yeah, so if you look at, compare Nashville to a traditional hub like at, Atlanta or Charlotte or whatnot. So we actually have kind of had, if you look at the history of Nashville, we've kind of gone through a renaissance, a change on what that's looked like. So when the terminal originally opened, we were an American Airlines hub. We were doing around 75% transfer traffic, about 25% O&D traffic is what the others call, so origin or destination. If you look now, we're doing around 85% O&D, and only about 15% people are transferring actually in the facility in Nashville. Some of that just has to do with, the carrier mix that we have, and, we're just not a traditional hub for a legacy carrier, but, we feel that it puts Nashville in a very strong position. People, enjoy nonstop flights. We love our transfer passengers. We think, they get a little taste of the airport, but, being able to provide those nonstops. But then we also have, great service to all your traditional hubs as well, and you can get one stop pretty much anywhere in the world too. So, we're really happy with our airline mix, but, it has been a change. And that's one of the things that when we talk about the capital projects and all the road work and whatnot, if you've got the majority of your people are transferring inside your airport, if they just come and, they come in on gate D3 and they leave out on D1, then it doesn't really matter what your roads are like. But now that we've grown so much and so many people are starting or ending their journey in Nashville, that's where you see us having to really focus on the number of parking garages that we've built in the last few years, the amount of road work that we're currently doing and we have done. It's to keep up with that mix of traffic that we have.
How many airlines do you all have now serving Nashville?
I think today on the passenger, there's 15 or 16, and then we have 3 or 4 cargo airlines as well.
Yeah, just to add on to the nonstop side of the house, we all would prefer to go nonstop and go where we're going and get off the airplane and move on. And so with those announcements yesterday, 3 more nonstops, that'll take us from 99 to 103. And when you compare us to other airports like let's say a Memphis, I think today they have about 40 nonstops. So people are coming to us because they can get where they want to go. And that's good because we have a catchment area, the counties, everybody, all 95 counties in Tennessee, somebody each year is flying out of BNA from those 95 counties. And we know which counties. Williamson is a huge contributor to us, but of that 24 million passengers, a little over 4 million people come here from Kentucky every day or not every day, but averaged out or whatever. 4 million people are driving, so they're not flying out of Louisville, Lexington, and those airports because we're closer and they can go right where they want. And then we get about 1 million passengers out of northern Alabama because we have better service than Huntsville does, and so they're coming for nonstops, and the airlines are coming to Nashville with Josh's help because we're a low-cost, very efficient airport. So there's something called cost per employment. So basically, the airlines pay us about $7 for each passenger that goes through to run the airport. They pay us back. for that. But at a city like Boston, the cost for employment is $50. And so we try to stay as cost efficient as possible because they make more money coming here than they would at Huntsville or Memphis, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Tri-Cities, Lexington, or those. But we're pulling from that, and they're coming here because of the nonstops. The airlines are coming here because of the passengers are here, and they're making more money when they come in and out of here.
So in your other presentation that I heard, you talked about the need for a 12,000-foot runway, because then you would be able to tell us about that a little bit.
Sure. So I'm going to back up just in case the folks at home want to see. Oops, there it goes. So we have 4 runways at Nashville. 3 of them are running north-south. Though 95% of the time the winds in Tennessee are north-south, then those are all 8,000-foot runways. 8,000-foot runway on a hot day, which is defined for the pilots greater than 95 degrees, and a calm wind, wet runway, you can get anywhere you want to go into Europe. So 4,000 miles, no problem, we can do it. If you want to go to Seoul, that's almost 7,000 miles. If you want to go to Sydney, it's 9,000 miles. So in order to, get a larger aircraft with more fuel on board up to takeoff speed, you need a longer runway on a hot day to accelerate to be able to lift it. And as a former pilot, nobody likes pilot jokes, but when you don't have enough gas and you land short, you lose a lot of customers that way. So a longer runway would connect Nashville to the rest of the world. The reason we have Hawaii on here is Josh and the team are working to secure, hopefully nonstop to Honolulu, because you get halfway to where you want to go. It's a nice location. And the #1 destination for people out of Australia is Hawaii, out of Korea is Hawaii, out of Japan is Hawaii. And so Nashville would, in effect, be connected, very closely if we're able to secure that one of these days.
Now, is that 12,000-foot need for a 12,000-foot runway, has that got something to do with Monell's?
Not anymore. So we have done engineering studies, and we believe the runway 2 left, 20 right, the one that's closest to the location that was formerly run by Monell's, is the cheapest, most efficient way that we can extend that runway. The problem is you have to lower Murfreesboro Road by 40 or 50 feet, put a bridge or tunnel on it, and then have the runway go across the top. That's our belief. The FAA started a study in January of this year. It could take them up to 2 years to either agree or disagree on what's the runway length that Nashville needs, and would they be willing to support us in doing that. So the lease ran out in the former building known as Genesco. It didn't run out. They moved out to the old Bridgestone. That was a 30-plus-year-old building that was, not in good shape, so we had that demolished. And then the lease ran out on the restaurant recently, and instead of getting into another lease, we just let it run out. And now, as part of that runway extension, the FAA and the State Historical Preservation Office will evaluate that building and what needs to be done with that building. So there's still ways to move it, demo it, as long as you comply with all these laws. We're trying to work our way through that right now.
Now, does the FAA appreciate that you need 110,000 dump truck loads of fill, and if you lower Murfreesboro Road, that would give you quite a bit of fill to move over to the new Southwest?
You should come work for us. That's a really good analogy. If they would hurry up that study, we could use Murfreesboro Road as fill. So that'd be awesome.
That'd give you quite a bit of what you need there.
It would.
The passport security, the TSAA. Wall Street Journal, I think a couple of days ago, had an article about liquids and different kind of security equipment. And I've been through a few airports, probably 3 or 4 over the last year or so, and they all got different rules. One airport had a guy out there with a dog sniffing us, And we just walked right on through, didn't have to take our shoes off or any of that. What's the plan for Nashville, and how's it affected by all this security?
So we have 3 federal agencies that help us. The FAA inspects our operation of the runways, taxiways, and the flights. TSA is responsible for passenger security and cargo security, and then Customs and Border Protection. On the TSA side of the house, they should all be operating off of the same rules and regulations. We're lucky. Steve Wood is our federal security director. He's stationed in Nashville. He's responsible for all of Tennessee. Also a veteran, was in the United States Army, as Sam Whitson was as well. He's a really good partner, business partner to work with. You're seeing different ways that TSA can accelerate. So we used to have 10 security lanes. We now have 24 security lanes. Our theory is 1 million could go through each one of those lanes, on a regular basis. When you carry on your bag's going through explosive detection. If you check a bag, it's going down underneath the airport, running on conveyors, going through computers that do explosive detection. So nothing gets on the airplane that has not been scanned. And we have 6 bomb dogs and we have 3 drug dogs. And TSA has dogs. Their dogs are called vapor wake. So they can sit here, and as you walk by, the dog is sniffing you to see if you have anything on. And sometimes when the passengers back up, for whatever the reason is on the line, they'll deploy their dogs to come out there and walk through here and sniff and go, okay, nobody in this room has anything, they can go on through security. So there's multiple ways TSA tries to manage that. Every morning at 4, we get an email that shows our passenger counts by hour, and that's what TSA uses to make sure they man up to be able to handle the number of screeners they need for those passengers.
I understand they just had a hiring fair or something like that. And so if anybody needs a job, I think they said $2,000 signing bonus and $22.54 an hour, I believe. A lot of people ought to sign up for that, it sounds like. So,
and I don't represent TSA, but yeah, they have the same struggles to try to get to 100% of the authorized employees that they have. The challenge for TSA, at least from talking to Steve, is when they sign up, you're getting a good job, federal benefits, and those kind of things, but those TSA agents that are scanning you or helping you get through security, they're given exams every day or every time. They have to score 80% or better on detecting issues that they have. And so it's a stressful job for them because they are always in training to try to figure out what the new threat might look like. And it's pretty interesting to see how much they do train.
Rick Graham, former mayor of Spring Hill, responsible for the new interchange in Spring Hill, mostly. But would you like to make an appeal for saving the building at Monell's? Tell us your story.
Well, back when it was New Orleans Manor, my bride of 42 years now, we had our first date there. And we went there the night we got married and several anniversaries. So we were pretty sentimental toward the building, but we're very open to the progress of the airport. In fact, my whole family, we got there in March before Monell's closed. And so my wife and I could say farewell to the building. And so we're good with that, but it did have some sentimental value.
Well, congratulations on 42 years. Your wife's very patient. I've been married for 44 years, and the church that my wife and I got married at, it no longer exists. So I feel for you.
Any other questions from our audience? Oh, we got a lot. I saw this lady first. Stand up and introduce yourself first.
I'm Paula Cerulli. I'm a realtor here. I've been here for 38 years. I used to work for American Airlines up there when we first moved here. So, yeah, it's changed a lot. So one of my questions is, well, I have 2. Who is your typical passenger? Is it business, personal? Obviously, we know where they're going. And the next question is, I live in a neighborhood, and at the top of the hill in that neighborhood, where the Southwest planes come over. And I know there's going to be, the height is going to change as to their flight pattern. And we don't get anybody going out, we get everybody coming in. So and I know they're on a schedule, and I know that from when I used to work for American when it was a hub as well. So what are the plans for that? So 2 questions.
I'll let Josh do the passenger, and then I'll take the aircraft.
That's a great idea, Doug. That's what I was going to suggest. So as far as the passenger goes, we have a pretty good mix of leisure and business, and I guess the new buzzword is bleisure, right? Kind of the mix between the two. Most months were a little more leisure heavy, so about 60-40. But for the year, if you take out the seasonality, it's a little more leisure. I'd say probably 57-43. But then, bleisure is a buzzword, but it is kind of getting more gray on that. So, I would, go a couple of percentage points kind of either way, depending on how somebody wants to count their trip.
That's what I would have said. I would have said it's probably 55 leisure, 45 business, which is a pretty good mix. We've been hovering right at 50%, but you can see it spike. And Thursdays are glitter Thursdays when the bridal parties always come in, and then they leave on Sunday with ball caps and sunglasses on. So reference the airspace as Nashville continues to grow, and I didn't mention it earlier, but we're the 29th biggest airport in the United States now. So if you're in the top 30, you're considered a large hub, which means we move more than 1% of all passengers in the United States every year. So as we continue to grow in that at 24 million, Atlanta's number 1 at 100 million, we'll see where Nashville ends up over the long haul. But as we continue to grow, the FAA is studying the airspace just for yours. So we're considered a Class C airport right now. You have to have certain qualifications and equipment to fly in and out of here. But because of that busyness, we have Smyrna to our south and Lebanon and John C. Toon, and that the FAA has started a process to study it to upgrade us to Class B, which is basically going to keep the smaller airplanes out of the Nashville area near our airport, and then which makes it safer for the larger aircraft to come in and out of here. And once they move them in a little bit of a farther range, they have to sort of go around Nashville International Airport now or be at certain altitudes. They're going to raise the altitudes that the commercial airliners arrive into Nashville and depart out of Nashville. So you might still see the same flight track, but I think they're trying to figure out where to move them, but they're going to be a couple 1,000 feet higher up. I live in Williamson County over in the West Haven subdivision, and they come over our neighborhood. I'm like, hey, there's money, so that's good. So, but it's not. It's, to me, I love that. It's not that noisy, but I get if you live on a hill or something, it might be a little bit closer. But we've been working with the FAA to say, hey, if you take off and just go to 4,000 or 5,000 feet, you basically can't hear the jet. You can see it. And then they're going to keep them at a higher altitude before they come in. So I think over time it's going to transition and work out for everybody. Yes, sir.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, David Walker, Williamson County. Comment and a question. The short comment has to do with international flights. It's kind of sexy to have British Airways. It's a big name brand, all that kind of stuff. But I worry that they have less commitment to Nashville than a U.S. carrier would. Had that been United, had that been American, had that been Delta or even Southwest, I think they would have done more in terms of adding on to the international route. While it's sexy again to have JAL or somebody like that, the people at the airport, we've heard them call it Saturday, Tokyo Saturday, because so many people go to and from Tokyo on the Saturday. I think in terms of commitment to Nashville, we'd be a lot better off with a domestic carrier because they would glob onto other aspects of their international. We don't want to be Charlotte, but I think if you look at what happened in Charlotte, you get enough flights that they'll build onto it as opposed to a one-off. What's the long-term commitment British Airways has to Nashville? It's just that one flight. So what are you thinking about that?
Yes. So, obviously we're very happy to have British Airways. I'd be very happy to have anybody that wants to fly to Europe. So, but when you look at British Airways and the way that the aviation laws are in the United States, British Airways doesn't have the ability to fly from Nashville to Amsterdam. That's not the way the aviation laws work. We have seen a commitment with British Airways that we're pretty excited about. They started with 4 times a week, grew to Nashville daily quicker than any other North American city that they've done that, and then have upgauged the aircraft, and it's been very successful. So, with the way that the alliance structure works throughout the globe, really, British Airways is part of One World, which is the same as American Airlines. American Airlines owns a considerable part of British Airways and vice versa. So it really has to do with who wants to fly it. So from a point of sale on the European side, the European carriers tend to sell a little better in Europe going this way. If you're going from Nashville to the other way, it doesn't matter quite as much who's flying it. So that's one piece of it. But absolutely understood, and we are definitely looking to diversify our mix to Europe to get some additional carriers as well.
And if I could just add on to that, because of the partnerships like One World that you were asking about, so when you see British Airways, you know that that's an American Airlines partner. But what's happening, we've asked American Airlines, will you take us nonstop to London? Delta, will you take us nonstop to Frankfurt or Paris? They would also, I'm not an airline person, but they prefer you to come to their hub. Why don't you come to Dallas? Why don't you come to Charlotte before going over there? So a lot of times what you see from different airports is we'll take that international carrier, but if that international carrier becomes really successful, Delta could come in and go, hey, we want to now assume that route. So it's the way to get started, and we'll see how it grows. I think you'll see more U.S. carriers. If we hit a couple of the things that we're working on and expand into South America or into Europe, that's going to get the American carriers to go, hey, we don't want to just give this away. Let's go compete against that.
Question for you, Josh.
Who are you with?
I'm Erin Thomas. I'm the Media Relations Manager at Nashville International Airport. How long has British Airways been with BNA?
So they started on my wedding anniversary in 2018, and then they ceased operations during the pandemic. Obviously, that was a huge global issue, but have come back and are stronger than ever and back to daily. So, happy to have them. But yeah, it's been outside of the pandemic. They've been here 6 years now.
Good morning, James Sella, owner of James Sella Dream Vacations, so travel agency. So the cell phone lot, I understand it's probably an Achilles heel. So what ideas do you guys have to improve that? My clients are like, oh my God, the cell phone lot shows the flight coming in, and then 40 minutes later, I get to the airport. So have we thought about busing people over to the lot? Something else to get it moving better so that it's more convenient.
There was previously 2 smaller cell phone lots that were overpopulated, but in that, let's see, I think I'm going the right, but in that big loop that we're trying to build right there, the cell phone lots are in the way. So getting off of exit 216A off of I-40, you can't widen the road without going through the old cell phone lot. in order to build that bigger loop and those little interchanges to connect, you can't use the smaller cell phone lot. So those have been closed. We're not sure what the map of inside that loop will be and if we'll bring the cell phone line closer than the one that's over on Murfreesboro. But one of the things that Aaron's team does a really good job was trying to educate the passenger. So if your flight is supposed to land at 11:30, you shouldn't have your pickup come pick you up at 11:30 because you're going to land around that time. It takes about 5 to 8 minutes to taxi to the gate. Then it takes them a few minutes to open the door. Then you got to walk to bag claim or wherever you're going to go. So on average, a passenger hits the exit doors at the airport about 26 minutes after they're scheduled to land. So when you want to pick up mom or dad or grandma, don't come at 11:30 and circle the airport. The idea is that you hold out at the cell phone lot or wherever you choose, and then when they're physically coming to the door, there's lanes that are marked, and you tell grandma to be at lane 7, and we'll come pick you up. When people do the circling, everything for us is data and math, and so when Uber and Lyft first got to the airport in 2014, they did 60,000 trips a year. Today, they do 3.4 million trips to the airport. And then that's only a third of our passengers. The other third are driving, and then the other third are being dropped off by mom or dad or something like that. So we have a traffic issue, and every day on all of those lanes, there's 3,000 vehicles an hour. And so if you arrive early and you don't want to move, you're causing the backup. So we're trying to always keep the flow. So we want a cell phone lot that's convenient, but you're not hurting if you wait off location. It's your choice, but don't arrive until they physically are getting ready to walk out of the airport. That way you can just pick them up and go, kind of thing. Makes it easier for us.
And Doug, if you would just quickly talk about what we did with the parking garage to help alleviate some of the issues that people, if they choose not to use the cell phone lot.
So you can park at any parking garage or any lot for 30 minutes for free. And then the first hour is only $10. So if you plan it right, you could have them walk over to the garage and you could come in, pick them up in the garage and leave. That's another reason why we put the hotel there. So now you can rest in the hotel lounge or restaurant or whatever while you're waiting for mom and dad to come. And the last one I didn't answer earlier is we raise our own revenue, and you saw $340 million. It's basically a third. So the airlines pay us to land, park the jet, and rent space. Roughly, let's say 150 million or 125 million. Then we sell hot dogs, hamburgers, t-shirts, and our concessions, another 125 million. And then we sell parking at the airport, 125 million. So those are our three ways that we generate the revenue to run it and pay for all the capital programs we have. Yes, sir.
Real quick, explain the passport program where you can go into the airport even if you're not flying.
Sure. After 9/11, TSA came in. You have to have a ticket to go through security. So we had created the passport program. You can register online 24 hours in advance, get your background information run through Secure Flight. Assuming it passes, you get a passport and you can pick it up at our information booth, and then you and your kids can go in and see grandma get off the airplane, or go into the airport and shop, dine, or whatever you choose. We do 75 of those a day. Almost 100% of them are reserved, but only about 50% of the people are actually coming to do it. But we've had over 1,200 people come shopping inside the airport in just the first couple months, so that's a good thing.
Very good. Fascinating information. We appreciate Doug and Josh being with us this morning and sharing kind of what goes on the inside at the airport. And just appreciate you taking your time to be here. Takes a village for this event to happen. You'd be surprised, but we just want to thank Dr. Darrell Lampley and particularly Mary Beth Shalley back there that make this venue so welcoming to us. And we would encourage anyone that hadn't been to the Columbia State campus to come and see it. Very impressive. Again, thank you to Creed Henderson and the WCTV team. They always make us look good. Tom and the crew over at WAKM. Thank you for that, getting us out on WAKM. The Williamson Herald Derby and Cassie Jones they're one of our media partners, and I want to thank them. Get a little financial support from Vanderbilt University, thanks to Lynn Maddox from AT&T, and I'm not sure who replaced their representative. Kel, do we know yet? Nope. Okay. And one of the most important people in this room is Terry Rimke in the turquoise there on the back row, who brings coffee from McDonald's every time we meet. Terry, appreciate taking your grandkids to the Wilson County Fair last night, getting home at 10:30, and then showing up here with coffee at 7 o'clock. So she's the Wonder Woman today. And then the chamber staff, of course, led by Matt Largen. Kel McDowell's our quarterback on this effort and make sure everything comes together. Of course, Jenna Potter, and last but maybe most important, Nancy Conway. She kind of keeps me in the loop on things going on out there in the community. Thank you all for being here. Back here on September 27th with a very interesting program coming up. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.